All right, and here we go. Now this one is from City Wheel. Okay, City Wheel. This is Tyshawn, and you will see Tyshawn and another guy named Chris. Okay, they were pretty much creating a video for the Ninebot Z10 in its debut. But what you see with Tyshawn, and everybody knows, well, I don't know where Tyshawn has been, but Tyshawn, wherever you are, come back, please. We need you in this community. You're awesome. What you see is a few things. You see that he's flat-footed, okay? You see that he's bent, his knees are bent. But what you also see, and again, this is an aggressive rider. He's same as V. He's aggressive, drunken master style, and he's an explorer. He's a dynamic explorer. So let's go over this again. He's a very aggressive rider, but I designate the style for him drunken master. Dynamic explorer. Because explorer is also a riding style. But explorer just means that you have multiple styles and you use them based on the situation at hand. Okay? Dynamic means that you're not just flat-footed, that you're not just aggressive, that you're not just one style, but you adapt to your environment. And this is what you'll see with V. This is what you'll see with David. This is what you'll see with many other riders that I've never met, but I've seen. And I've never met them personally, but I've seen them. They ride similar to him. And his riding style is what you need for New York if you want to ride fast, okay? New York roads are pretty bumpy in many areas. They're really bad. And the roads are pretty wide compared to Boston, but one thing I like about New York is it's very predictable, okay? It seems chaotic, but New York is extremely predictable because the roads are grid, okay? It's like a grid. It's not like Boston where I consider Boston spaghetti city, which is why when I go to New York, it seems very easy for me. But anyway, point is, if you look at his arms, it's flailing. Front, shoulder, leaning. Back, left shoulder with arm flailing. Let's watch. Now, what you see, and sorry for the loading screen there, but what you're watching, let me make sure this is not 1080. Good. Now, what we're seeing here is his flat-footed, once again. He's riding a Ninebot Z10, which is a wheel that pretty much forces you to stay upright. But because of his riding style, okay, his riding style is actually superior to mine. Because what happens is he's dynamic, I'm dynamic. He's aggressive, I'm aggressive. He's a drunken master style. I'm a cricket, meaning I pretty much stand like a cricket. I'm pretty much straight, right? I divert left and right when I need to, but that's not often. And I'm not I wouldn't say I'm too much of an explorer. I'm just dynamic. These guys are explorers. They have multiple riding styles that they can use to adapt to different wheels. And I know that he is an explorer and dynamic because what happens is when he got on this Z10, apparently it was his first time riding it, and he figured it out right away. I could not figure this wheel out. Okay, it was staying up straight and it was going against everything I already knew how to do. But he was able to adapt and throw this wheel around with his body. But if you look at his arms, you'll see he's doing it left and right. He's forward and backwards, forward and backwards. He's taking both his arms, throwing it forward, throwing it backwards, throwing it forwards, throwing it backwards. You'll see some riders do that, but mostly you see aggressive riders doing that. Why do they do that? It gives them a sense of control. It gives them a sense that, listen, I'm riding, anything can happen. I don't really know this wheel, or I do know this wheel, but it gives them a sense, it pretty much brings down their anxiety level. This is what aggressive riders do. Some aggressive riders do when they are anxious. Okay, it's a level, it's something that reduces their anxiety to the maximum. Okay, so you'll see him do this in mostly all his rides. Okay, so let's watch him a little bit more. Goodness gracious. So sorry that this thing is loading like this. So when he's riding slow, he's flat-footed. I've never seen Tyshawn not ride flat-footed. That doesn't mean that he's not aggressive. That doesn't mean he's not dynamic. That doesn't mean, but it does mean one thing though. It does mean that he doesn't have as much ability to accelerate fast. He can accelerate, but I don't see how he could do 0 to whatever in a short amount of time with that riding stance. But everything else is on par. His ability to maneuver the wheel on demand, his ability to gauge the situation and make an instance in moment decision and throw the wheel to the left or right to avoid an object. I've seen him do that multiple times, where a car will just randomly stop in front of him and he'll just, in an instant, just switch to the left, whoa. You know, I've seen this. I'm not sure why it's doing this. Let's go to 480. You see? You notice how he throws his hands to the left because he's going left. Sometimes he'll throw it to the right because he's going right. And whenever he's cruising, he'll have one hand to the back, just flailing. Why? Because this gives them a sense of freedom, a sense of control, freedom. It makes them feel like, okay, I'm in control. Okay, take his hands away from him, and chances are he won't be able to do that. And that's most of us anyway. But for the most part, you'll notice he's flat-footed. But one thing I like, and I've absolutely always liked, the very first time I decided to purchase an electric unicycle, and I pretty much got the basics of riding, and I wanted to ride faster and more aggressive, his riding style was one of the ones that really, really pretty much encouraged me to learn a new style, because I couldn't really do his style. In fact, I tried copying it. Once I tried copying his style in my city, and I was literally flailing my hands flailing it left and right, moving my body and my knees left and right. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I feel great. But the thing is, it was exhausting. For me, it was exhausting because I felt like I didn't necessarily need to do that in order to get the excitement and maneuverability that I need. Everybody has a different riding style. Now, another thing about him is he's very light. I don't have to know his weight, okay, to see that he's a light rider. And that is good. That's a good thing because he can lean into this as much as he wants, but he never leans. I've never seen him lean forward, but I have seen him use his knees and his head, like the top part of his torso, all the way up to his head, to lunge forward while his knees remain pretty much back. Okay, so I've never seen him lean forward. I've seen him crouch, which is why I said he's the drunken master style. Yeah, he doesn't really crouch like Chooch, but he's definitely a drunken master because he's always moving left, right. His body is everywhere, right? It seems like it's everywhere, but really, what that means, he's ready for anything at any time. Okay, it's amazing. If you ever watched a Drunken Master movie, you'll understand what I mean. But one thing I'm noticing is, and I'm not sure if this is because he's not really riding fast, I don't see a lot of acceleration. I've seen many of his videos. I don't see any where he accelerates pretty fast, but I have seen him ride fast. And yeah, look at his hands. I mean, just look. He's riding fast. And usually when he's riding, he's not still. Most people, I'll show you some where they're riding still. Like their bodies are straight and they're still. This is not a very good riding style for such, for a city like New York. Okay, so again, here's another video from City Wheel with Tyshawn and Chris riding together. Now, Tyshawn is in the back with the camera, pretty much creating a video of the Z10, and Chris is in the front with the Z10. Tyshawn is in this video riding a Tesla. Now, let's check this out. Perfect. What do we see here? What do we see? Flat foot. He's always flat-footed. I rarely see him with his foot not flat. But one thing I like about him is if you look closely, his heels are on the back, overhanging a little bit. This is ideal. If you're gonna ride flat-footed, ride like this. Ride with your heels a little bit back, a little bit overhanging on the pedal, unless you have massive pedals. Okay, like the InMotion V10F or V10. These have massive pedals, or the Nicola Plus. These are massive pedals. That's fine. You know, you can put your whole foot on there. But for wheels like the Z10, the Tesla, some of the King Songs, the MSX, this is how you want to ride. Okay, this is good because if you hit any potholes, any bumps, any type of weirdness, and you tend to like leap forward, then you're all set. But as you can see, like I said, he doesn't lean forward. So his acceleration abilities are not that great. And they can't be that great because he's using his foot is flat. His knees are bent, which is ideal. So that's a plus. That's a plus. That is how he gains acceleration. Okay, this right here is how he gains acceleration. So basically, he's countering the lean. His upper body is kind of crouched. His hands are forward only because he's holding a camera. But even when he's not holding the camera, he's always having, his hands are usually forward and his forwards and backwards. His right hand's usually forward. His left hand's usually backwards. But he's using his waist up. This is how he gains acceleration. This right here, the bent knees, is pretty much for maneuverability and in case of bumps. Okay, so he doesn't have to worry about bumps at all. Even if he doesn't know they're coming, he will be able to absorb these bumps perfectly fine. So if you're gonna ride flat-footed, you better have this. You better have your knees bent. You know what I mean? In his case, he's all set. He's not leaning forward. So everything is pretty much symmetrical. Everything is perfect. This is perfect. Now, if you look at Chris is also an aggressive rider, but I wouldn't consider him a drunken master. No. Chris, I would consider, let me see. He's mostly an explorer, but also a straight man. There's a riding style I call straight man. He's a straight man. But if you look in some of his videos, hopefully I can find it, but he switches up his feet. And that is how I'm not sure if that's how I gained what I'm doing nowadays, because I was literally on the search for a riding style. I liked his style and I liked his foot. His feet were all over the place. And I'm like, how in the world is he moving his feet on the pedals like that? And I think this might be how I was inspired to come up with my style. And once I tried this style and I realized it was too much in terms of like being able to ride smoothly, but at the same time gaining all kinds of maneuverability I need. I don't know, once I added this into the mix, I realized this style became much easier by lifting my feet. Right now, Chris is riding flat-footed because he's not really riding fast. But usually he slides his feet left and right on the pedal to maneuver. So let's just watch them. Oh, look at that. Now, if you look at Chris, it looks like he's dancing, right? Well, that's interesting. I'm not sure if this is his style or if this is something he incorporated, because he's an explorer too, like I said. But he's not a drunken master. He's a straight man. He's a very dynamic straight man who's an explorer. And what that means is he switches from stance to stance based on the wheel, based on the situation. And if you look right here, he literally leaned his left shoulder forward. Why? Because he needed to turn. This wheel doesn't allow you to turn with your knees or your torso. You literally have to throw some part of your body to counter its weight in order to move it left or right. And so this is what you see him doing here. But for the most part, we can see that Chris is flat-footed as well. So most guys, like I said, are flat-footed. The only person I've seen so far in this search is V and myself. I haven't seen much other people do use their toes for acceleration. I'm not saying there aren't. I just haven't seen any on the videos. But most people are flat-footed. Oh, this is what I'm talking about. This quality is pretty bad. But you see how his left foot is kind of like skewed to the left? He does that. And this is what got to me. I never was interested in doing that. But I was interested in moving my feet for some reason. And I think in that process, while I was learning this, I came up with the toe. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure. I'll have to go look at my videos and see how I came up with this. But he's definitely an explorer because he is a dynamic explorer, but he's a straight man. He's usually straight, unless he's sitting. Sometimes he sits, and even his sitting style is amazing. But yeah. This is what I'm talking about. Let me go back right here. This is it. You see? Look at his feet. His body is not straight. Okay, so his body is straight up. But if you can see his shoulder, this part, his shoulder is forward leaning. He's not leaning for acceleration, but his shoulder is forward while the wheel is going the opposite direction. Isn't that amazing? See? So look at his foot. Look at his foot. It's not up like V or like myself, but it's skewed. It's skewed to the left. Because what he's doing is he's countering the movement of this wheel. All right, next. All right, so these guys are not... Okay, so I don't know what to consider these guys, to be honest, except to say they're explorers, because that's literally what they're doing. They're exploring this wheel, okay, this electric unicycle. These guys are just intense. They're in a different level altogether. Granted, these are controlled environments. They're safe. There's no cars. There's no traffic. So they're allowed to go nuts. But, I mean, look at this guy. He's in the air. I mean, how's he doing that? Well, what you'll see is guys like this, they have what is called power pads. It's fitted to the side of the wheel, and it allows them to accelerate forward while gripping the wheel. So it allows them better control of the wheel when going up hills, when accelerating, and when doing stuff like this. Because trust me, in my style, I can't do this. I can't jump in the air or even on a curb with my style because I don't really hug the wheel. But these guys need to hug the wheel in order to do what they're doing. But in addition to that, they need acceleration. They need to be able to accelerate. They need to be able to switch styles, switch stance, switch everything. They need to know everything. Okay? They're literally in the gray area of styles because they're not one thing or the other. They're everything. So let's look at some of the stuff they do, which is madness. Wow. Effortless. I don't understand what he's saying, but I know one thing. It's the MS Pro. And yeah, these guys are amazing, man. They are amazing. So let's go back and look at some of the stuff they're doing and critique and see what styles we could come up with, what we can call them. Let's see. I mean, wow. So again, this is the MS Pro. So I don't know what's back there. We can only see this, but I can imagine he was coming off of a ramp and that allowed him maximum acceleration. But how is he able to jump this thing over the rail? This is crazy. Well, he has power pads right here in between the wheel itself and his leg are power pads, and he's able to grab onto the wheel, albeit I'm sure he went through much trial before he did this, but grab the wheel and hop. It's a bunny hop. It's a bunny hop on steroids. That's amazing. That's amazing. So all the while, these guys are grabbing onto the wheel. That's amazing. And this is the power pad right here. Okay, so this is the power pad, and then there's it goes in to accommodate for his leg, and this part comes out to prevent his leg from pushing forward, which is what allows for the acceleration. So this is amazing to me, how these guys ride. I don't know how they would ride in public. I don't imagine it being any different than any other normal rider. I can't imagine that they're aggressive riders, to be honest, because I don't know. Maybe they are. I have no idea. But the point is, they use their entire body to move the wheel in the direction that they want to go. So if you see, for example, right here, hold on. When he came down, if you notice, look at his body. The wheel tends to go this way because he came off the ramp. But look, he's using his entire body, his waist, his legs, everything to force the wheel in the direction he wants to go. So he has complete control over the wheel. These guys have complete control over the wheel. In other words, this type of exploring forces you to pretty much adapt to the wheel, to the nature of the wheel. In public, I can't imagine that they wouldn't use any of these skills. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's amazing. Effortless. I don't have a style for them. I don't know what to call them, except to say they're very dynamic explorers. Okay, next. All right, Kuji Rolls. Kuji Rolls is a very popular individual in the EUC community. He does amazing reviews, amazing short reviews of electric unicycles. Check him out, Kuji Rolls. Now, let's look at some of his riding styles. Okay, once again, what do we see? Do I have to say it? Flat-footed. Kuji is a flat-footed rider, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, one thing I noticed with the flat-footed riders is their turns tend to be wide, except in the case of aggressive dynamic explorers, like, for example, Chooch, or, well, not even Chooch, because I haven't seen Chooch make sharp turns at high speeds, but I have seen Tyshawn make sharp turns at high speeds. I've seen VT make sharp turns at high speeds. I'm sure there are many more, but guys, I don't know everybody. And I haven't met a lot of riders, to be honest. Except when I go to New York, I see a lot of them, but I don't see a lot of people making sharp turns at high speeds. But anyway, Kuji Roll is flat-footed. And what I like about him is he takes extra measures and extra precautions, right? So he looks like he's wearing no pads, but look, if you look at his knee area, you can see that he's possibly wearing what looks to be knee pads, okay? Because your jeans don't look like that, and I don't think his knees look like that. But yeah, you can tell he's wearing knee pads in those jeans. And also, you can see on the side of his wheel, he has, well, he's crashed it many times, but also you can see he has power pads. Why? Because he's a forward leaner. He leans forward. And for this scenario, and he does a lot of tests, so maybe he was using that for testing climbing hills and jumping. So he does a lot of hopping on curbs. He's amazing. He's a very light dude, but at the same time, he's able to jump so high with his wheel. The MSX specifically. So let's watch. So if you see when he's turning all right, he uses his butt. So if you look here, he's literally taking his butt and he's pressing it down while throwing his body to the left, but all symmetrical. Okay, no shoulder leaning forward or anything like that. No one leg tilting forward and the other is compensating. No, everything moves together. So if he's leaning to the left, his wheel is leaning to the left. If he's leaning to the right, the wheel is leaning to the right. So everything is symmetrical. And I would imagine that he's more comfortable doing that because he's also grabbing onto the wheel with his legs. As you can see, he's grabbing onto the power pads. Yeah, no time do I see him switch that stance. That stance is consistent throughout. Okay, that's a very good view of Kuji right there. All right, so what we see here is he's actually not leaning in this case because he's going up a hill. It looks like he's going up a hill, and you do not want to lean going up a hill. So what he does is, you can see that he's again flat-footed, but what you can see is he's using his bent knees. Again, bent knees, as if you don't notice by now, but bent knees is essential for safe riding because roads are not ideal. But if you can see, he's taking his heels and pressing it into the wheel in order to gain acceleration up the hill while gaining the comfort he needs and assurance he needs from the power pads. He's actually using his waist up to his chest area to kind of like help him lunge forward. So he's not leaning forward, but he's definitely pushing and pressing forward. And he's doing that mostly with the power pads. Let's take a look at him do the slalom. Now, what I like about this is it shows you how he turns. Now, the slalom, how would I handle that? I'm not sure. I've never done it. But if I were to guess, I think I would end up using my heel-toe method. But if you see, his entire body has to turn left and right. And I don't think that's ideal. But again, that works for him. Again, this is not a right or wrong assessment here. This is just looking at it from a subjective point of view. He's using his entire body. His body is always symmetrical if you look for the most part. The reason he's turned like this is literally to prevent him from falling. But mostly, if he could help it, he would have his entire body straight. And if you look, his both knees are symmetrical to the wheel. If both his legs are going left, the wheel is going left, and vice versa. So he's using his torso and his symmetrical legs in conjunction with the wheel to turn left and right. Let's just watch. You see, that's amazing. I mean, it's good for him, but the problem with that is he won't gain a lot of acceleration because he's losing acceleration because he's very one-dimensional, if you think. Because while he's turning, he could actually be gaining acceleration, to be honest, if he had one foot up. You see what I'm saying? So 1 foot up would pretty much cause acceleration, while his bent knees would be allowing for maneuverability or whatever. But he's very symmetrical and one-dimensional. So you see that, right? I'm not saying that's the reason he hit the cone, but I'm just saying there are several times where you see he almost fell. And the reason is because he's one-dimensional. He's not an explorer like VT or Tyshawn, for example. These guys are explorers and they're able to adapt to a given situation. So in traffic, if he were to race V, for example, in traffic, he would lose automatically because in New York, for example, because his style doesn't allow for emergency situations. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Yeah, and he falls a lot.
All right, we gotta go to the street.
Which is great. I mean, it just means he's fun. He's a fun guy.
Street race is about to start in 10 minutes.
But guys, this was Kuji in France on a track. Let's watch Kuji in the real world, in China.
a powdery puddle.
All right, well, guys, there's not much I can say. Kuji is awesome, and the riding style I would designate him is pretty much the Explorer, because he's not an aggressive rider per se. He's more of like a straight man, okay? Straight man, stiff legs, okay? But he's more of an explorer, dynamic straight man, stiff leg type of rider. But I didn't have to say much, because if you look at his riding style, the guy does everything. He does everything, and one of the reasons he's able to do all these things is because he's very, very dynamic, and he uses those power pads to help him do a lot of things. Something I should probably check out. But anyway, Kuji is awesome. Check him out, Kuji Rolls. And finally, guys, as far as commentary goes, I will end with Eddie Moy. Now, Eddie Moy is pretty much representative of the majority of riders, since many riders are new, and many more riders will be new in the coming few days, weeks, months, years, right? So the average rider is pretty much represented by riders like Eddie Moy, Marty Blake, people like that, right? These are the average riders, and that's most of us. We can all aspire to be like Kuji Rolls, Tyshawn Foy, Chris, etc., VT, EVX, etc., right? We can all aspire to be like them, but initially we're gonna be, pretty much learning our way, getting to that point. And I think Eddie Moy's riding style demonstrates how we all started out.
I just got my M Super X yesterday, and it was raining yesterday. I couldn't get to do my maiden ride.
Now, as you can see, Eddie Moy is pretty much riding flat-footed, and he's a safe rider. This is the ideal safe rider, okay? This is just what it is. He's flat-footed. He's not accelerating too much. He's not causing the wheel to overexert itself. I mean, the wheel is literally not working at all. And this is ideal. You're not stressing the wheel in any way, any of its components. Riding like this will afford you many, many miles, okay, in terms of range. And yeah, it's just a safe way to ride. To turn, he uses his torso, his waist, and this is typical of any new rider.
Which I am doing right now. Just to talk a little bit about why I got it. I used to own the M Super, the V3S Plus.
So here we see Eddie Moy riding his Kingsung KS18L, and flat-footed. Again, he's a flat-footed rider, and he is pretty much a stiff leg rider. I rarely see him bend his legs, his knees, enough so that in case of an emergency or braking or bumps, he'll be able to do an adjustment. But the thing is, I've noticed he's not a high-speed rider, which is part of the reason he's probably not bending his knees as low as most aggressive riders do. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're not a high-speed rider, there's really no need for you to bend your knees too much. But this wheel is also, as you notice, is not a 16-inch, right? It's 18 inches. And so that's big enough to handle bumps at his low rate of speed. If you're riding something like a 14D or something like that, at probably, I don't know how fast the 14D goes, but at its top speed, then you still need to bend your knees in order to absorb bumps. But yeah, he's a safe, stiff leg, straight man rider. He's not an explorer. He's not dynamic. He's very, very, how do you say? I would say, I don't know. He's just a stiff leg, straight man rider, you know. And that's most of us when we start. This is the safest way to ride if you want to ride safe in the beginning.
So I wanted to show the difference between going over the Manhattan Bridge and going over the...
Now this is a rare view of him, further reinforcing that he is flat-footed and his knees aren't really bent, again, primarily because he has a wide-inch tire in terms of circumference, diameter, and he's not really riding at top speed, you know. And for that, you don't really need to bend your knees, and you really don't need to use much of your body to turn left and right, because you have plenty of time to make that decision.
Fun. That was the Manhattan Bridge, by the way.
What I do like is his back heel is a little bit overhanging on the pedal, which is good. This is the type of riding I'd hope most of us, if you're frequent riders, would grow over. See how he's turning? So if you look at his turn, the knees are pretty much doing absolutely nothing. In fact, they're stressed out. He stresses out his knees. They're not bent. And this one, I know this is a curved camera, but you can kind of tell the characteristics of the turn. He's literally depending on the top part from his chest up, relying on that a lot to make sharp turns, when in fact he could have easily overcome that by bending his knees and using his torso. But he's using his waist up, okay, this part of his body, to pretty much cause sharp turns. Because he's a straight man. He's a straight man, stiff leg. He's basically two styles: straight man, stiff leg. But he's not dynamic. He's not an explorer. And again, it's a style I wish and hope that most of us who are brand new riders over time will grow out of. But for now, this is the safest way to ride as a new rider. All right, guys, that's it. I hope this helped you out. I didn't want to go and do too many. You could use pretty much the assessment I've done in these 7 examples and pretty much assess other people. Just look at them and see what works for you. There's no right or wrong except when it's absolutely wrong. You know what I mean? So enjoy yourselves. Happy riding. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Take it easy. Till next time.